So we are moving into James chapter 3. So last week we looked at we looked at James and his famous or maybe even infamous faith without works is dead. And we talked about for James, faith is a changed life. Faith is made clear by is made clear and vibrant and alive by acting into it, by being faithful. And a lot of people get hung up on that. So now we move into another layer of what constitutes faithful living for James. James is perhaps the most strident, the most aggressive, you might say, in saying that faithful living means caring for the poor, but that's not all it means for James. For James, it also means being careful of what you say, which is not a virtue that is encouraged in our society anymore. I feel like even when I was growing up, it was something that was encouraged, but it doesn't seem like it's encouraged anymore. It seems like saying whatever you want is a virtue now, with no care for how it affects other people. We'll see what James has to say about that. So James chapter 3. So the first 5.5 verses. So he begins with, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers and sisters, for you know that we who teach will face stricter judgment. For all of us make many mistakes. Anyone who makes no mistakes in speaking is mature, able to keep the whole body in check with the bridle. If we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we guide their whole bodies. Or look at ships. So they are so large and are driven by strong winds, yet they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great exploits." First thoughts.
I wanted to teach Bible study while you were gone. Why?
Right, it puts, yeah.
Puts a heavier burden on teachers, preachers.
Mm-hmm. It does, but it's interesting, because James doesn't say not many of you should be teachers because you might get something wrong. What he's saying is, in order to teach, you should show some spiritual and emotional maturity.
Even your children, even as a parent, this is like a message for everybody.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Like if you look at right now, what we say, there's no restrictions on what you say or how you speak. It goes back to the person who's teaching them.
Right.
Parental,
It does.
not only the
Yeah.
school, but
Yeah. JC is already displaying a lot of my worst traits, that which are not on display here at church, but they're on display at home.
At home, you have the freedom to relax. And then when you relax, that's when.
Yeah.
I used to always tell my son, payback is a bitch.
Yeah, Regis.
But you also should think of it as when you're reading that, don't let a stricter judgment on you prevent you from at least trying.
Right.
Right,
Oh, okay.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, if some people say, well, they're going to judge me on what I'm going to be saying. Okay, but if you think about it, if you don't at least try, then
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
just put it out there.
Yeah.
What
Well,
I want to. I
And,
gotta watch what I'm saying.
well, then, yeah. Well, and what's interesting when you read these first two verses, first of all, James obviously includes himself into the role as teacher, we who teach, but he also says, for all of us make many mistakes. So he is saying, I make mistakes. This person who says not many of you should teach, you know? So you're right, Regis. I mean, you can't not make mistakes, you know?
I know that's a double negative.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And my translation says, the second sentence in verse 2, anyone who makes no mistakes in speaking is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like mature better.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
One perfect.
right. Well, and again, think about, you know, the Greek and Hebrew understanding of perfection. It's, you know, for us, it's someone who makes no mistakes. In the ancient world, perfection is complete, you know, and so mature is another texture there. Yeah, we're gonna. Okay. Does anybody else have an interesting trend? Is most people, is it saying perfect?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think mature is probably a better sense of what they're getting there. Because it does bring growth and maturity. There's in just about everything where you learn something, you get to a point where nobody else can teach you something. Yeah.
How about the idea of not saying something when you should?
Yeah, I mean there is that. Yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's
you can make mistakes in talking,
Mhm.
but you can also make mistakes in keeping yourself quiet.
Right. Right. Yeah, and
He doesn't get into that.
he doesn't get into that because James's concern is the destruction that saying something can saying something crassly can cause within the community. The now not saying something can cause a lot of trouble in the community, but usually not saying something is a sign of something going on in you. Either you're not courageous enough to say it, or there's maybe to use James's language, you're lacking the wisdom of what to say, or yeah.
Understand, because James is worried about your neighbor
Right.
and everything, not as much about yourself.
Yeah. But
I understand.
yeah, right. But I mean, it's an important thing to bring up because there is such a thing as a lie of omission, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we think we're protecting people or protecting ourselves when we don't bring things up, or when we just let, you know, Tom just say whatever he wants, and you don't stand up and say, hey, maybe let's not say that, like it can cause a lot of damage. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah.
Sometimes it's better to be silent. I grew up with, and I'm sure a lot of you heard, if you can't say something nice, you don't say anything at all. Don't say anything at all. So,
Learn that in Bambi. Yeah. Yeah.
And James didn't have to deal with social media.
Oh, goodness. Oh, man. Yeah. So, here's the thing about teaching. And just about everything where you learn, martial arts, sports, Bible studies, scripture, anything, you get to a point where you hit a plateau. There's nothing else that you can learn that anyone else can teach you. What you have to do when you hit that plateau is you need to start teaching. and you're not going to teach well at first. But at some point, you need to start teaching. I learned more once I started preaching about scripture and theology and all of that, and about God's work in my life. I learned more when I started preaching than I did in the 20-something years before that.
Yeah.
You know, I learned more doing these Bible studies with you guys than if I were to read through the entire Bible myself every day.
Yeah.
You know, there comes a point in your growth and development in whatever it is you choose to do, where the only way that you can continue to grow is to start teaching other people. And so, but it's not something to be done willy-nilly. It needs to be done well. And you need to be measured in what you say or don't say. And so James, yeah.
Too, if you're going to go into a position of teaching,
Mhm.
you have to be open-minded. Too many people that teach present only their views.
Yes.
They don't, so you have to be aware of that too. If you are taking on that responsibility, you have to understand that not everybody thinks like that. And you have to present the whole picture.
Right.
Or that can end up dangerous.
Yeah. Right. Well, and you know, what's the point of teaching? Is the point of teaching so that you think like I do? For a lot of people, yes. But I see it, my hope when I teach and preach is that the Spirit works in you guys, and that you come to your own insights and your own understandings. And you know, it's okay if you don't agree with me. Now, more and more Americans just want to be told what to think.
Yeah.
They don't want to do the hard work themselves. And that's why the churches that the pastor gets up and says, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to believe. You can't be a Christian if you don't believe this, or this, or if you don't do this, or this. Those are the churches that are doing really well. Yeah.
How does this tie in with deeds?
With deeds.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there's the old saying, do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
If your deeds aren't backed up by what you say, then you're also doing exactly what James is saying in this.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so
James is
everything
very concerned with hypocrisy.
that what we were going through in the last couple of weeks has a lot tied in with taming the tongue.
It really does. Right. Yeah, because taming the tongue is an important piece of following Jesus. I mean, and Jesus is very clear, you know, he says, the one who says to his brother, you fool, you know, is in trouble, Jesus says. You know, we really need to watch what we say. And Jesus says, he says it's not what goes into the mouth, but what comes out of it that makes someone unclean, right? And you know, I grew up saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me.
Yeah.
What a crock. Yeah. I bear deeper wounds from words than I have scars on my body.
Well, that's the same with social media. These young people attack their classmates and they want to commit suicide.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. So and James's metaphor is really appropriate for just that way of thinking, because we think words are small. We think words don't matter. Yeah, say whatever you want. It just bounces off of me. But James says that the tongue is small, but if you put a bit into a horse's mouth, and bits are just little things, right? If you put a bit into a horse's mouth, it can controls the whole horse.
Absolutely.
You know,
Right under that tongue.
right? The rudder on a ship, James says, is small compared to the ship. You know, you have a, I don't know, 100-foot ship and it's got a little bitty rudder, but the rudder controls where the ship goes. James says this is why we need to be careful about being teachers, because the things that you say change who you are as a person. I'm in a group chat with some friends. We've been friends for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And you know, the humor in that chat often boils down to what's the most offensive thing you can say in this situation, you know? And I noticed if I participated in that, I started noticing the patterns in my thinking changing in a way that I didn't like.
Yes, yes.
The thing, yeah,
Yeah, just looking ahead, verse 7.
yeah.
We're at. Okay, I'm sorry, it's verse 6. It corrupts the whole person.
Yes, absolutely. It does. It does. And so you think, well, and think of the cultural situation we find ourselves in, where saying awful things about people that used to be something that you would do behind closed doors, and now it's front and center. And think at how that think of the people you know who get on the social media and jump online and say awful things about whoever, about President Biden, President Trump, whoever. And think about how their behavior, how they as a person have changed as they keep saying this. You know, like, yeah, as we'll see, it corrupts the whole person.
Well, I had it yesterday. I was in Nancy's room, and the woman next to her, today she's going in for some kind of operation on her back. And she was on the phone with somebody. I think she must have been on welfare because she said, I didn't get my effing food stamps this month.
Mhm.
And this woman says, well, you got to reapply. She says, how F can I do that? I'm in the hospital.
Mhm.
She's going on and on about this. And all I can think of was, boy, I'm glad you're not standing there, Charles. You have to listen to this. I mean, all right, she doesn't have her food stamps. The world is not going to end as we know it. You can get to whatever you got to do, go online or whatever later, but you don't need to like fly off the handle like this. There's a lot more important things to worry about.
Mhm.
And it was like a drunken sailor over the way she was talking.
Yeah, well,
And she doesn't know who was on the other side of that curtain. You could have been standing
Yeah.
there.
Well, and there's some research that shows that what we would consider curse words or foul language serves a like a pressure valve effect. It does help to release that, but there comes a point where, okay, is this a tool or are you letting it control you? Because you get caught up in that and then you're feeding on the anger, right? And so there's a balance there. Reed, you were going to say something.
Yeah, after I got out of college, I was more or less forced to write a resume.
Uh-huh.
I find that one of the hardest and the worst things that a person can do, because all the resume is boasting about
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so another person can see how great you are.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to hire you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yet James is saying the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great exploits.
Right.
And
Yeah. It can accomplish a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you talk about curse words in
Mhm.
Faith Keepers, Linda Reese comes to Faith Keepers.
Mhm.
She was a microbiologist.
Hmm.
So we learned that you can say, oh, E. coli.
Uh, so James can, yeah.
If you keep it in context, if you thought a resume and you say, can do a little bit of stuff. I mean, I'm not really very good at it, but they're not going to call you for the interview. So in some regards, it's not boasting, but in a resume, that's what a resume can be.
Yeah.
In my Bible, in the explanations, in what he said, a person's word reflect his character, and this are a key to his whole being. James emphasizes the importance of good works, but also acknowledges that all Christians stumble and fail in many ways. James' call for good works, therefore, must not be seen as expecting perfection. When James says that a person who can control his mouth, perfect man, he probably has absolute perfection in view. It is a perfection, however, that will be attainable only in heaven. Still believe should always seek to grow in holiness.
No. It's
So there was a little
aspirational.
explanation of perfection.
Yeah. And so James goes on to illustrate more what he's talking about with the tongue and the power of the tongue and how the tongue is destructive or can't actually, I think he would argue it is destructive, as we'll see. And so, yeah, how great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. Whenever I read that verse, I think of the story of when Johnny Cash's camper backfired or sparked out and started this enormous forest fire in California. And he was arrested. They brought him before the judge, and the judge was like, "Sir, you explain yourself." He said, "Don't talk to me. Talk to my camper. It started the fire." How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. It takes is a cigarette butt. That's all it takes. And the tongue
Thank you.
is a fire. The tongue is placed among our members as a world of iniquity. It stains the whole body, sets on fire the cycle of life, and is itself set on fire by hell. For every species of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by the human species. But no one can tame the tongue, a restless evil full of deadly poison. He's taking a pretty hard line to the point where you wonder, okay, so should we cut out our tongues? Because he's and us sitting around here, we think of all the good things speaking the people can accomplish. James is not giving any of that nuance. He has a very very clear rhetorical goal here. And you have to remember that he has a rhetorical goal, which is he has a goal he wants people, he has an idea he wants people to walk away with. And it is really, really important what you say. Because one, it can destroy communities. We've all seen the way gossip can destroy communities, right? It destroys friendships, it destroys families, it destroys churches, it destroys careers, it can destroy countries, cities. Yeah.
And at this time in James's life, Christianity was new
Yes.
And for somebody or some group of people to say the wrong thing
Yes.
would be would hurt the community instead of helping it.
Right.
The Jewish Christians at that time, you know, were
They're already,
well, they were looked on with higher. Well, what did they say?
yeah.
You know, what are they doing? Yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're already getting pressure from outside. So they don't need discord within as well. But the last thing they need is for someone to say something to to the wrong person, and now new rumors are being spread about Christians. And keep in mind, the first century or two of Christians, there are things like, oh, Christians are cannibals.
yeah.
But can you imagine why that would be?
Yeah.
This is my body, this is my blood. Christians are cannibals. Misunderstandings, and this was used to justify persecution. Of course, Nero blamed the Great Fire I forget the year, but a fire that destroyed most of Rome. Nero blamed that fire on Christians. Of course, it just so happened that the part of Rome that burned down, Nero was able to use to expand his pleasure palace. How convenient, um, but yeah, yeah, James really, the tongue cannot be tamed, and it corrupts. It really affects. It not only damages communities, but it damages the person. And yeah, go on.
I liking that the fire is, to me, it's like when a fire comes, it destroys, it does all that damage, but you can see it, you can feel it, and when somebody's tongue hurts you that way, you feel it, and it lasts.
It lasts.
Doesn't go away.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
It just continues to hurt.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's gonna do a lot of damage, even though you apologize. It doesn't matter.
Apologizing
It's
doesn't
already
fix
been
it.
said, you can't bring it back.
And here's the other thing to consider. Eyewitness testimony in court cases, and James, tell me if this is what I've heard, but eyewitness testimony is not as highly regarded as people might think. Because 10 people can watch a car accident and you have 12 different versions of what happened. Yes. But has this ever happened to you? Maybe you did something or you saw something happen, and then as you tell the story, maybe you change some details to make yourself look better or to keep yourself from getting in trouble. And the more you tell that story, your actual memory starts to change. You actually start to believe the story. We are really, really impressionable. Our memories are, even at their best, our memories are not ironclad. What you say affects you as a person. It steers the entire ship. If you get caught up in saying awful things about someone, even if those things are true, this is not a slander thing. This is just saying things. Then that shapes you. And it starts to change who you are. And James says that it's not faithful living. It corrupts the person. The tongue is placed among our members as a world of iniquity. It stains the whole body, or it corrupts the whole person. It sets on fire the cycle of life. That's disruptive. It can disrupt the entire cycle of life and is itself set on fire by hell.
She hears his voice, yeah.
Hey, Finley. Oh,
There's been families torn apart because of what somebody has said.
yes.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We can all think of examples like that. And so James wants us to recognize all of the things that the tongue unguarded can damage. It damages communities and it damages us. With it, we bless the Lord and Father, and with it, we curse people made in the likeness of God. Ooh. From the same mouth comes a blessing and a curse. My brothers and sisters, this ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and brackish water? Can a fig tree, my brothers and sisters, yield olives or grapevine figs? No more can salt water yield fresh. First thoughts. Right. It cuts deep. It hurts. James doesn't pull punches. Like Jan said a couple weeks ago, it's hard.
Sounds so simple. But
It does. It is hard.
I'm thinking, if you feel somebody is doing something wrong, I feel like I'm judging them, and I don't feel it's right to judge. So do I say something, or do I keep my mouth shut?
So, yeah. So judgment has at least two meanings, and we conflate them when we talk about judging other people. On the one hand, judgment is discernment. Is this right or is this wrong? But judgment can also mean sentencing, and so I think we have to discern, is this right or is this wrong? But right and wrong is not as easy as we think it is. The famous, the right. I mean, the famous test case is it wrong for a man to steal bread to feed his starving children? And in my circle of friends, people will often say something like, if you see a parent stealing formula at the grocery store, no, you didn't. And now I bought, so these come in cases of 6. I bought 4 cases the other day and spent $50. Now, I paid, but I can see why a parent wouldn't want to pay or can't pay.
Can.
But right and wrong. Now, there are some people who would say, you know what, stealing is against the law. It's wrong. There are some people who say stealing from the store hurts human beings. It's wrong. I don't know. Very few things are black and white for me. I studied philosophy. Yeah. So, James, were you going to say something, or you just look like you have your thinking face on? Yeah.
He always says.
Yeah.
Opportunity there.
There is
You
opportunity.
see a person steal,
Oh yeah, you can pay for it. Yeah.
and there's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah. Right. And so there's discernment. And we're told that God gives us discernment. For some people, discernment is a spiritual gift. They have, God says this is right or wrong. I think for most of us, we have to kind of muddle through. And so we judge in that we discern. Now, what we do with that discernment is a whole other thing, right? You know, you're going to hell. Well, okay, who said you can do that? Did God give you that? Were you appointed the hell sender? Like, yeah.
So with your friends, your discernment said, this is changing me. I don't like the way I feel. I leave
Yeah.
that situation. I get away from it.
Right. Yeah. I don't participate in it. Yeah.
Get involved. So
Yeah.
for us, pretty much what he's saying is step away.
Yes.
Step away. Because it's either a blessing or a curse. And
Mhm.
if it's a curse,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
not do so. Do so.
And well, yeah.
That's true. I think sometimes around toxic people, you're better to step away, but sometimes if they're friends or family, you can't. So you gotta watch what you say.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be aware of what's coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Because you can't always step away.
Well, and what's interesting when you read what I would call New Testament ethics, when you read what Jesus teaches, when you read what the epistles are teaching, a lot of it is, well, it 99.5% of it can be boiled down to take the log out of your own eye before you point out the speck in your brother's, right? A lot of it is watch what you do, guard yourself, make these changes in yourself. But I've heard a story, and I think I've mentioned it once or twice, of a man who comes up to his pastor after church one day and says, "Hey, pastor, when are you going to preach on sexual immorality?" Oh, well, Steve, well, is that your sin, Steve? Do we need to go into my office and talk about it? Oh, no, I don't struggle with it all. Well, then why do you want me to preach on it? We, as a culture, are much more interested in saying that person's sin. And there are a handful of passages in the New Testament that if your brother has wronged you, you take them aside, or if you notice your brother is doing something wrong, you take them aside and you correct them, or in some extreme cases, there's a couple points where Paul says cast them out, like they can't be brought back into the fold. Like that does exist,
Oh, yeah.
but it's a minority, but it's what we're really interested in. James is very much interested in look after yourself, because how can you, well, to paraphrase the first letter of John, he who says he loves God but hates his brother is a liar. How can you not guard your tongue? How can you say nasty, awful, reprehensible things about someone who God created in his own image and then turn around and sing praises to God? You can't do it, is what James says. Can a stream put out both clean and brackish water? Can a fig tree yield olives and figs? No, it's one or the other. Actually, these days you could probably graft the branch on, or not even these days. That was probably a practice then. But James would be like, "You're being difficult. Shush." That's not the point. You can't do both. Or he says it shouldn't be this way. It's not who we're called to be. Because Jesus got angry a few times. You brood of vipers, right? So there is room for some righteous anger in there. Yeah.
I, I, half of the Ten Commandments says thou shalt not,
Mm-hmm.
instead of, it tells you what you shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying you shall, or you should do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it, thou shalt not talk about your neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
instead of thou shalt praise God.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thou shalt not steal from your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt provide the goodness of your bounty to
Mhm.
one another.
Yeah.
Okay, I always struggle with why it was written negatively instead of positively.
Yeah. And that's a really good question and a really interesting discussion.
For another time.
For another time. Right. Yeah. No, but I just want to name like I think you hit on something that's really important. Like JC's 10, right? And so I say, JC, do not do this thing. And she's like, okay, but I'll do this thing that's just it's just half a step different. You said you said don't yell in the house. Well, I'm not yelling, I'm just speaking loudly. That sort of thing, right? The prohibitions, and we laugh because it's the uh teenagers and preteens are not savvy enough to hide it, but we have plenty of adults who do the same thing. Oh, the law says I can't do this, so I'm just going to do this, which is legally distinct, that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's a really important, yeah, it's a good conversation to have.
It's the same way with the tongue. You shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Curse. You should praise.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at it and say, "Oh, he's highlighting the negative parts instead of the positive parts," but he really isn't.
Mhm. Yeah. He's trusting that you can infer what the proper course of action is. Yeah.
But psychologists nowadays have done studies on these,
Yes.
saying, don't give a command opposite of what you want,
Yes.
because the brain registers that.
Yes.
Don't throw a foul because then that's all you're thinking.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the other thing. They didn't have all the psychologists and all the studies.
Yeah.
Look at how much we've learned with medicine and everything else too.
Yeah.
It might have been phrased different.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a video of a dad and his, I don't know, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old's touching the bicycle or something, and the dad's like, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. And the kid's like, dink, dink, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. And the psychologist jumps on and says, look, here's what's going on. The kid's not hearing don't, the kid's hearing touch. So what you say is, go do something else. You redirect, not, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But this is rhetorically striking. It sticks in our brains because not only is he saying don't do this, he's saying this is the damage that this can do. And so finishing, take care, Pax. Yeah.
Pat.
Yeah. So finishing up, who is wise and knowledgeable among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness, born of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not be arrogant and lie about the truth. This is not wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, devilish. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So now we're getting this positive. This is what you should do. There's still some negative examples in there, but more, it's this is what faithful living looks like. Yeah. First thoughts.
Doesn't wisdom take time?
It does. It takes time and pain and discernment and yeah.
It's not one of those things where,
hmm
okay, I'm wise.
Yeah.
You have to more or less live in order to, like you were saying, discern what is right and
Yeah.
so that you gain wisdom.
hmm
Is that what James is saying?
I think so. And I think that so the word Presbyterian comes from the Greek presbyteros. Presbyteros means elders.
Yes.
And so wrapped up in all of that is the elders who have lived experience, who have life experience, are the ones who have been called to lead the congregation. Ideally, that works out nicely. It doesn't always work out that well, but a lot of that goes to what Regis, to what you were saying, that wisdom comes from lived experience. There are some people who receive wisdom as a spiritual gift. The Spirit just says, you're wise, even though you haven't lived through things. That does happen. For most of us, wisdom is hard earned. And you can, and I talk about this often, especially as we go through James. We can tell the people who have had difficult lives and the people who have had easy lives. Because the people who have had difficult lives, who have had the work, who have had to push through challenges, show wisdom. They show empathy. They show discernment. The people who have everything handed to them, well, I'll just let you fill in your imagination. I'm practicing guarding my tongue. But I find myself generally very frustrated. Wisdom is something that comes through hard experience 99% of the time. And the thing about wisdom is that when I got out of seminary, I had taken pastoral care classes, I had taken ethics, I had taken this and that. And so I knew a lot of things, but I had very little like real lived experience. So I knew a lot of things, but those things that I knew had not become part of who I am. And I'm still working on it. You know, I tell JC that she's the reason my hair is white. Because when you see pictures of us, when Miranda and I first started dating, my hair was still pretty dark. My beard was still almost black. Wisdom, real wisdom, not just knowing things, but the kind of wisdom that James is encouraging comes through hard experience. Who is wise and knowledgeable? There are plenty of people who are very knowledgeable, but not very wise. What's the phrase? Knowledge is knowing that the tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in your fruit salad. You know, that's, you know, yeah. There's a difference there. Who is wise and knowledgeable among you? Well, how do you know if someone is wise and knowledgeable? You look at how they lead their lives. Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness born of wisdom. He ties gentleness to wisdom, not this bullying sense of strength that has become so popular where no, but by oh, I'm strong because I can bully people into doing what I want. It's been so bad. That's not wisdom because there's no gentleness there.
Somebody once told me, I forget who it was, but probably a lot of people,
Yeah.
you're a work in progress until the day you die.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always remembered that, and I said, well, good, because then tomorrow I might be different than I am today, so watch out.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because there are some people who I look forward to being a different person tomorrow than I am today because there are many things I don't like about myself and that I want to change. But the things that I don't like about myself are comfortable. I know they're there at least. There are people who are unwilling to really do the work, shall we say, because maybe they don't like who they are, but it's the devil they know.
Yeah, better the devil you know than the one you don't.
Right.
And change is difficult too.
And it's so hard. Well, and I mean you work 12-hour shifts, 5-6 days a week. You're not going to want to go home and do the inner work to to grow and mature as a person. It's hard. It is hard work and it's exhausting. Yeah.
I have
Yeah, we're almost done. This is our last slide. So, it says, show your good life that your works, show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness born of wisdom. Wisdom and gentleness are tied together. How do you know if someone is wise? Well, that might be a good place to look. Are they gentle? Do they have a gentleness to them?
I'm trying to remember that poem about, I asked God for patience and he said, instead I asked God for wisdom. And finally at the end, it's like, finally, you got it right. You have to look for that.
Yeah.
You know that others are
Yeah.
carried it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the flip side, but if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not be arrogant and lie about the truth. So don't try to pretend that you're wise if really you're driven by selfish ambition and bitter envy. And selfish ambition and bitter envy are they're kind of two prongs of the same fork. Because envy is tied to ambition. But envy is looking at what somebody else has and wanting it for yourself, right? That's a commandment. Don't do that, But selfish ambition, if you get caught up in that, it's really easy to get to a point where you don't care who you step on to get to the top. And if you're driven by these things, don't try to pretend that you're wise. There's do you know who Mark Driscoll is? So consider yourself lucky. So Mark Driscoll is a pastor. He had a mega church in Seattle, Washington called Mars Hill. And Driscoll was very his church and his preaching was very angry and very in your face, and it was very very politically and socially conservative, and it was very men belong in the workplace and women you belong at home in the kitchen, and it was very confrontational, and men, if you're not leading your households, then you're failing your family. And I'm not going to get into like the right and wrong of all of that, but I bring it up because there's a podcast out, The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. And I bring it up because Mark Driscoll brags that there is a trail of bodies behind the Mars Hill bus. Be metaphorically speaking, but for Driscoll building Mars Hill, he didn't care how many people he hurt. All that mattered was building Mars Hill Church up to be as big as possible, because his thinking was the bigger Mars Hill Church is, the more people I can reach with my truth. All of those people are collateral damage. That's selfish ambition. This is not wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, devilish. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. Again, envy envy destroys you because you can't see what you have. You can only see what someone else has that you want. It destroys you. And if that feeds in the selfish ambition, you'll do anything you can to get what you want. It doesn't matter who you hurt. Think of the destruction that causes in communities. It doesn't bring peace and unity and growth. It brings disorder and wickedness. When even and we see this all the time. Again, I mean, Mars Hill is a great example of this. When a pastor says the only thing that matters is growing God's kingdom, then they are willing to compromise on a great many things for that goal. Or the only thing that matters is the greatness of my nation, or the only thing that matters is for restoring my family's honor. The only thing that matters is this or this. You can dress it up however you want, but it's ambition. And ambition is destructive. Because when you are overcome by ambition, you're willing to justify any number of awful things. Which, the last 20 years of television, you have House of Cards, Game of Thrones, like all of these shows that are just full of awful people who have a goal, a greater good goal, and they're willing to do whatever they can for it. Yeah.
Take out reverence or
Exactly. Yeah.
see that in our country right now.
We do. Yeah. I mean, I've seen churches torn apart by it. Of power plays and angling, and it's right. Yeah.
Not nice.
It's and every pastor I know has a story.
Mhm.
Angry salt.
Yeah.
I think we need to remember the problem is selfish ambition, because ambition itself is not
Right.
bad.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Ambition is what drives us forward, right? It's ambition is the gear that turns everything. We want more. We want to do better. But selfish ambition, yeah. And envy, let's talk about envy. Because envy is, people who are critical of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are often accused of being envious. Oh, you just wish you were rich. Well, I'm critical of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. I have no interest in being rich. They give me a modest home, a couple of cars that are reliable, let me pay my bills every week or every month, and I'm happy. It's not about that. But when I mean, you only get that level of wealth by taking it from others, but that's a whole other conversation. But there is envy at work. There's envy of this person has this position of influence that I want, or this person gets everything that they want, or I mean, there's plenty of envy, and it destroys communities and it destroys us.
I would
Yeah.
add health in there too.
Health, absolutely it does. Well, especially now that we know about, cortisol, the stress hormone. It's very good for its purpose, but if it lives in your system for too long, it destroys your heart, it destroys your body. One of the many reasons our diets don't help, but one of the many reasons we have such an uptake in poor cardiac health as a society, because we're all stressed out all the time. Envy, selfish ambition activates those stress hormones in us. It's literally killing us. But the wisdom from above is first pure, and by pure, free from selfish ambition and envy, is first pure, then peaceable. If you're not striving for peace, where is the wisdom? If you're causing strife and you're causing discord and you're pitting people against one another, where's the wisdom? There's no wisdom there. That's the second step. Then peaceable, then gentle.
That brings to mind Mother Teresa.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And she's not without her problems, but she lived her life dedicated to mercy and gentleness, willing to yield. Miranda and I had early on, we had a discussion. We were like, okay, what's more important, being right or being married? You know? Willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits. The prophets say God desires mercy over sacrifice. James talks about the importance of mercy. Full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. Now that's kind of the goal, because we're all hypocrites. But
And mine says
Yeah.
it shows no
Yeah.
favoritism and is always sincere.
and as always, and that's different. Yeah.
But it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always sincere.
And that's one of the reasons when I'm preaching, I'm super honest, like, hey, I'm preaching to myself. I'm dealing with this. Like, this is my journey. And part of that, and I told this story while preaching. When I first started preaching, I would be writing a sermon and I hope so-and-so's here on Sunday. They really need to hear this one, And what if they weren't there. And finally I realized I need to be preaching to myself because I'm the only one who's guaranteed to be there on Sunday.
Yeah. Congregation, and I'll be thinking, boy, Reverend Charles is talking about me.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So we're finally getting a positive vision of what faithful living looks like. Up until this point, James has been like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Now he's saying this is what Jesus calls us to. So
Blessed are the peacemakers.
blessed are the peacemakers.
They shall.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.